afternoon. We are the caboose, Rashko and I. We're the end of the train. And we have the survivors and or the thrivers in the room right now, the people who hung out. I believe that these are the types of folks that will be the ones to digitalize the fastest and the most because you have the best set of knowledge to operate with, right? So we appreciate you hanging in there to the end of the show. So as Brian shared, my name is Paul Cianciolo. I am the Chief Operating Officer with TraceLink. I've been with the crew for a little over 10 years now, and I'll let Rashko introduce himself as well.
My name is Rashko Roydov. I'm heading our analytics and revenue operations teams, as well as all of the currently deployed generative AI efforts, systems, and platforms.
So usually when I come up with wacky ideas, I write them on a piece of paper, then I put them in an email and I ship them over to Rashko and I say, can we do this? And then Rashko tells me no, and then he comes back a day later and he said, actually, I figured that out overnight and I've already got it coded up and we're ready to go. So Rashko and the team, and there's a lot of really, really awesome folks that are experimenting and building within TraceLink on the topic of GenAI. It's terribly exciting, obviously. Hopefully, those of you in the audience are experimenting with this as well. And so what we wanted to do during this presentation is walk through, as Brian pointed out, a little bit about our journey in and around GenAI. Shabir walked through this, our president and CEO, yesterday during the keynote, and you saw this 5-level maturity model that we're working towards for agentic orchestration. And we will announce some major releases in the October timeframe for our agents. But where Rashko and I really wanted to focus today, believe it or not, is back at level 1. So there's a lot to be learned and a lot we're doing just in the land of assistance and really using that across the company to be able to fuel learning, education, and enablement so that we can all move forward and as fast as we can. So that's what this is really about, telling you and sharing our journey in terms of the experimentation that we've been doing in and around GenAI, really with the benefit of not only aiding in and supporting the TraceLink employees, but our trading partners, our solution partners, technology partners, from an enablement and education perspective as well. And so we'll walk through that. Importantly, we'll start with the why. Shabir referenced this yesterday, but here was the graphic he was referring to. And so this was a study done that looks across different functions and tries to understand what will be the magnitude of the impact, estimated and forecasted, of course, on different functions. And so to blow this up, what you're really seeing here is supply chain and inventory management as a category. And on the left, you see the cost savings, and on the right, you see the potential revenue growth. And you see the spectrum of opportunity. And what he referenced is supply chain and inventory management has been identified as one of the areas that has the greatest potential benefit, both on cost savings and efficiency, as well as revenue growth, profit maximization. There's a couple other ones that are of similar size and scale. I think one that's of this kind of large spread that supply chain and inventory management has. So there's a lot of opportunity to really look into this particular area, which we all obviously operate in from a life sciences and healthcare perspective for the benefit of patients. So that's the why. So from a goals perspective, I shared this kind of overall value statement, sharing our journey with you. Why we're pursuing it, some foundational knowledge, and what we've learned about some of the operational tenets or truisms that we've encountered, some of the bottlenecks and the potholes that we've stepped into and pulled ourselves out of. We'll review a couple of internal use cases and some of those learnings, and then a couple of external market-facing learnings as well. And so I'll start with some of the background. About a year ago, we realized we have a big problem, but a good problem. And so that problem is all of us as an industry and participants on the network are sitting on an absolute mountain of real-time data and a mountain of historical data. So a couple of data points here. Over 1.1 billion transaction histories processed to date. And on the right side, over 250 billion serial numbers that have been reserved inside TraceLink for our customers to use to actually create digital twins of their products, right? So those digital twins are going to flow through the supply chain, and they're going to carry on a digital journey and pick up events and relationships and context and metadata all through that journey that we all have the benefit on a secure, protected, segregated basis of using as you are a member of the TraceLink network. We're also sitting on a mountain of new capability. We walk through this overall, pretty busy diagram, but a full-featured one in terms of what we're doing around partner orchestration, process orchestration, and product orchestration on top of the Opus platform and on top of the TraceLink network, with the goal of ultimately escalating to agents. But one of the challenges this presents is, as an employee of TraceLink, how can I possibly understand all of the capabilities and the benefits that each one of these products provides? I worry about that every day. I worry about enabling a field team. I see other executives in the audience who I'm sure are worried about enabling their respective teams with the knowledge necessary to be able to have very, very effective meetings with our partners and our customers. How do we arm you with the knowledge that you need to be successful with TraceLink products? We also have, Terrence just used this slide, but a range of different processes and systems that we have to understand and master as well. How could I possibly become an expert when I need to at a moment's notice in a particular system that a customer or a partner is using? Very, very difficult, right? So we all face these problems. So what did we do? We started with the basics. We understood we had a lot to learn, and we had all of this content, all of this information spread across TraceLink. And the first step that we pursued was a harmonization of our data foundation from a learning and enablement perspective. And so we gathered all that together around technical documentation and product documentation, industry and community efforts that many of you take advantage of, all of the TraceLink University materials that have been created, all of our DevRel materials, and we tagged it and we put it on a unified content experience inside of TraceLink. And so now if you go to tracelink.com, there really is one place where you can find that all, but it didn't fix our problem. How do we create a scenario where a human can go to TraceLink, it's open to the public, everything's accessible, but you still have to sort through all that information. You would need a lot of time, a lot of coffee, or an alcoholic beverage to get through it all over a long period, right? And so how do we make that a better experience for our teammates and for our customers and our partners? And so ultimately this led us to level one, and I'll have Rashko describe a little bit about what we've built with our two products here, Wolfgang and Amadeus.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I want to introduce to you our two main assistants, Wolfgang and Amadeus. They are L1, as Paul mentioned. They are assistants. This is not the agentic world that we are going to. This is the L1. However, this is a very useful and impactful place to be in as well. Wolfgang is our first assistant that I'm presenting here. So this is our internal only. This is enabling our sales, marketing, R&D, and services and other teams. But it is internal only. And Amadeus, many of you have probably already tried and have seen on our website. This is our customer-facing assistant, and it is meant to enable you with Opus knowledge as well as general TraceLink knowledge.
And so each of these assistants has been, Amadeus has been around for 7 months, 7 months, since October. And Wolfgang's been around for just a couple of months. And so very short lifespans for these two assistants, and we've learned a lot so far. And so I thought what we would do was talk a little bit about some of the key considerations as we've experimented and experienced some of the GenAI applications from an assistant perspective. So maybe you can walk us through these, Rashko.
Thanks, Paul. In terms of these learnings, we hope that this will be helpful for you too. We've learned some of these the hard way, as Paul mentioned, as we have been developing and implementing the assistants. First on the board, really important, it is a table stake security. So our main learning is we want to deploy this. You would like to deploy this in your own environment, these assistants, so that you fully control your data, especially in our business, which data has to be secure. This is a table stake. And then ensuring that your GenAI LLM provider does not train on your data. They don't use it for their purposes. And then SSO is definitely a very good addition there. The second one is speaking about the trade-off between specialization and general purpose assistants. We have looked at both, and we have realized that a general purpose assistant is really general and doesn't really go deep in any specific area. So if you want an assistant that actually helps you, you're better off in the current moment at least to specialize those assistants. However, there is a trade-off where you have to train your users to know which assistant to use for different use cases. But yeah, the Swiss Army knife of assistant has not been created yet, even by the big players.
And even on this front, I think what we'll see in some of the use cases that there are choices among the LLMs that you can deploy, either from the companies that have different models, or obviously multiple companies with multiple models, and they're tuned in different ways for different purposes.
Correct. And then hallucination and creativity. This is by far the biggest problem of these models, and many companies don't even touch the GenAI area because of the fear of hallucination. So I'm sharing here several of the tactics that we have implemented, which have virtually eliminated hallucination in mission-critical use cases that we have, where you have to have accurate data, including in the Amadeus use case that we are enabling you. The main learning here is that you can control the hallucination by controlling the creativity of the model, dialing that creativity down to almost zero, and putting a very strong, very strict master prompt or system prompt on top of the models to guide them to be really honest. If the model doesn't know the answer, it would not hallucinate. It would tell you it doesn't know it. And if it knows the answer, to ensure that the model doesn't color around that answer, because sometimes that coloring can go outside of the lines. And we want the model to be really constrained and honest when we're talking about mission-critical use cases. So that really unlocks it for you to use it in your mission-critical cases.
And I think the trade-off that you're pointing out is really important, right? Because sometimes there are use cases where we want our team members or ourselves to be able to operate with creativity.
Yes.
And then there are some use cases where you just want the single specific answer and you don't want it to find it, you want to retrieve it.
Yes.
And so you have to understand and think about what you're trying to accomplish and what the temperature setting you'll actually apply would look like, right?
And that speaks also to the previous point where, yes, we do have specialized assistants. Some of them are very creative, but we need to train our users to not use them for those mission-critical, very precise answers that we need. But yes, we need to enable users both with creativity and kind of those strict use cases. And then the recency learning for us was an interesting one, where real-time data always comes at a premium. In any case that we have tested LLMs with, real-time data may be 100 times more expensive, 500 times more expensive, so you have to apply either a tiered approach where you enable your users who really need real-time access with that access, and then tier it, so you enable some with truly real-time, some with maybe a day old, versus an approach which we have implemented. We have trusted our users to be adults and to decide which is their true real-time use case versus not, and we have enabled really the whole company with some real-time capabilities and asked of everybody to be cautious when they're using it.
And when you say real-time, I think what we're describing is the application of search, for example, right? Combining an external search with the internal data that the LLM is pawing through. And sometimes you need it and sometimes you don't. But when you apply search to the capability in combination with the LLM, it raises the price pretty significantly.
Correct. And then kind of everything rolls up into this last bullet here, which is the ROI is something that you have to continuously manage and monitor. By ROI here, I mean GenAI ROI. I mean the mix of models that you're using underneath the assistants that you're deploying. And I mentioned some of them can be 500x. They have 500x variance in the cost of these assistants and models. And you have to deploy it very strategically to users who would actually use them in the right way and have that value generated out of them. So we're continuously monitoring on the back end how users are using these models and what the cost is. And we have to be very precise in the mix of models that you are initially launching, and have to continuously monitor that cost and model mix.
So to a degree, this is the end of the story in terms of our learnings, but had we known this, we probably would have gotten there faster, perhaps less expensively, and certainly with less pain. So we wanted to put these 5 tenets at this point in the presentation so you can think about them in the context of the use cases that we're going to walk through next and understand some of those trade-offs and the choices that we made. The next thing we did is we gathered a set of internal stakeholders and ultimately a broader leadership team, and we asked them, what problems are you interested in solving? What are the things in your daily work, either as a individual contributor or working with a team of collaborators that you're struggling with? Where are you inefficient? Where can you speed up? What's going to deliver the most value for our customers and their partners if we can apply GenAI to those use cases? And we came up with a very basic framework. It's not particularly revelatory what we did, but it's really important to have a framework if you're going to have these discussions inside your organization. We found where we identify, as an example, and we asked people to write down what is the current state of their problem. How impactful actually is it? Why does the business need it, and why is it going to benefit? And if we can solve this problem, what is the potential impact? Again, not particularly revelatory, but until people go through this thought process, you'll have a hard time weeding through all of the different ideas that will happen. And then there's the obvious question: why GenAI? Why do we actually need to apply this technology to this problem? What advantage do we get relative to the cost in terms of investment and time that we have to apply to it? And then we got to figure out what's the actual approach, which gets us back to the trade-offs, right? Which models, which use cases, what priority? Do we need search? Do we need all these different capabilities inside that assistant in order for it to be effective? And so we ran that exercise inside TraceLink. We have a ton of great ideas. We picked 3 that we'll walk through, here. And so maybe you want to walk us through customer audits.
Yes, so customer audits was an interesting one. We had the very challenging task to drastically reduce the time spent on responses to your the customer-initiated audits that the TraceLink needs to process. And then we had to decide what systems and data we need to use, what assistants, what LLMs, and what challenges we need to overcome. So in terms of the systems, we are using our TraceLink standard operating procedures and the audit evidence catalog. Wolfgang is the assistant. It is internal. We haven't enabled customers directly to have access to it yet. And then LLMs utilized. We're using this. This is one of the newest OpenAI models, 4.1, which is extremely precise in terms of that strict master prompt on top. Allows that model follows it to the T and outputs really no hallucination in the output. And then the challenge is how we eliminated that hallucination is Paul mentioned temperature. This is how you control the creativity of the model. So you drop it all the way down, 0.1 is where we have gotten it to. And then with that master prompt, so with system prompt, we have eliminated hallucination. And by doing that, we were able to achieve the initial goal of the project to reduce a number of days spent, and not only with the model, there are other things that changed as well, but the model was one of the key drivers here to reduce that days spent on audits by 70%.
Yeah, and not only does that improve our operational efficiency, but it gets answers out to our customers faster. It turns those audit responses much more quickly and increases the quality of them as well. And so it was one of those certainly win-win use cases that we wanted to pursue out of the gate that's gone very, very well. The second one here, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. So this is just an example of actual audit support in action. So the experience, again, would be using Wolfgang, which is our internal assistant. Perhaps we got a question from one of our customers, and the question in this case was, do you conduct effectiveness checks for every CAPA? And so on. You can read it. And so what our team actually does is we look at those questions that come in, and this is the actual output of Wolfgang. And I think some of the misconceptions that sometimes people apply to where AI is right now is in our case, we would copy that, we paste it into a response. Of course, that doesn't happen, right? We look at the results, we try to understand what the model is telling us. Again, the temperature is set to the nearest to 0 possible, so that's effectively working through all of these source materials on the right and creating an answer to that question that the team reviews and makes sure is responsive to the question to the ultimate way possible. And so it really accelerates our team's ability to turn these around that I mentioned before. So the next one is around internal enablement. And this one really affects our engineering, product, and services teams in the context of customer requests and tickets that come in through our Confluence and Jira systems, right? So the obvious benefit here is that with 1,750 plus customers and all the trading partners that you work with, there's a lot of requests that come in. There's a lot of issues and cases that need to be managed. And for us, being able to apply an LLM securely to that information to be able to understand what's really happening under the covers, which ones should we prioritize, which ones are related, a lot of those questions become really interesting for us to be able to understand. And so similar to the last one, one of the major challenges, and we applied the GPT-4o mini model to this in our secure environment, was making sure that we set that temperature down to near zero so that we were getting effectively retrieved answers from the data with limited but some creativity built in so the team had the ability to dig in and understand what we should focus on. And so we now have hundreds of employees that have access to this and are able to accelerate their efforts on a daily basis by working through that information at scale. And so it also helps from purely an enablement perspective. This is an example of a question, as I mentioned before, from a product knowledge acceleration perspective. MPL, it's an application that underlies our Mint solution. And when we have someone newly onboarded to the product or the engineering team, they may go into this knowledge base and be able to understand, well, what is MPL and what are the transactions that it supports? And so this is a set of information that would immediately get reported on. And this is basically purely factual information with sources cited. So if any of you have used ChatGPT, you've seen answers similar to this, but in the context of a TraceLink employee ramping up and getting knowledgeable about our product and understanding past issues, tickets, cases, product enhancements, it's really a boon to people being able to accelerate their knowledge base. And the last one is more from a market-facing perspective. And so this is an example of Amadeus, right? So our customers often ask us questions, and we thought to ourselves 8 months ago, wouldn't it be great if we were able to take all that documentation and make it available and accessible, as I pointed out at the beginning, through the unified content experience, but put an assistant on top so that each of you could query that information and get very intelligent responses to combinations of questions and kind of work through it as well. And so for this particular one, as we pointed out, we leverage TraceLink University. We use TraceLink.com's knowledge base and the unified content experience. And this assistant is delivered through Amadeus, and it uses the GPT-4o mini model. Again, we drove this one temperature down to near zero, so we maximize the clarity of the responses that we actually got. And so far, we've fielded thousands. I don't know if we're into tens of thousands yet, but many thousands of customer requests that come to Amadeus since launching last October. So here's a quick video of Amadeus in action, and we'll kind of narrate as this goes through. So if you navigate to TraceLink.com right now and you go to resources, Amadeus is available to you. And this is just an example of some of the types of questions that we get. So this particular one is around how can I streamline the process of integrating to all of my supply chain partners. And you can ask Amadeus questions, multiple, and it'll start chewing through and coming up with answers. And if you want to take it further into questions like what are the step-by-step instructions that I could pursue to be able to integrate, Amadeus is going to work through that. The first set of responses here is really around some of the capabilities and the value points in terms of why leveraging the integrate once model that we've talked about over the last day and a half together, the onboarding team with network success, et cetera, the continuous support and maintenance becomes advantageous from a solution perspective. And then you can go even further.
And we always provide sources, just want to, sorry Paul for interrupting, but always provide sources for you to dive deeper if you need to, or to verify the answer. The sources also help the model verify its own answer before it presents it.
Absolutely. So please, experiment with Amadeus. It's there to certainly help. So what we thought we would do here is finish up with some final thoughts and considerations, a little bit more on the potholes and the learnings and the things that we've been through. So hopefully it helps aid you on your GenAI journeys as well.
Yeah, so the first one here is GenAI is really a force multiplier. It is not meant to be a magic wand that fixes all the problems. It's not meant to replace. It's meant to augment your people, your processes. It is really powerful at that. And then, yes, the trusted data foundation. Make sure that you feed it clean data. Kind of the input, garbage in, garbage out type saying applies here as well. So make sure that you have harmonized, clean, searchable data. And yes, start small and learn fast and scale responsibly. This is definitely our motto. We are piloting narrow, very impactful, highest impact projects that we can find, kind of quick projects that we can find in the company with the highest ROI, and we are scaling from there. In terms of privacy, security, we talked about it. Within your four walls is the best practice. Enforce SSO and tune the models for different use cases. Yeah, so please join us in this GenAI journey. It's really exciting. There's a lot of learnings, and hopefully we made your life a little bit easier on that journey by sharing our insights.
So there's one last tip and trick I'll leave you with. Hopefully everyone's experimenting with this technology. I think you'll find that some of the colleagues and employees that you work with may be slow adopters just because they may be intimidated by this, and we encounter this from time to time. But I think what we put here is just a prompt that hopefully people can take with them. The slides will all be downloadable in the mobile app, but it basically says, I work in life sciences, healthcare, and supply chain management. I want to learn more about GenAI. So if you're looking to learn more about it, there's no better way than use GenAI to learn about GenAI. And so if you throw this into ChatGPT right after the session and ask it to create a learning path or a curriculum for you, it will do that and will deliver it to you every day. So you can do it in 10-minute chunks, and you can become an expert just as easily as anybody else. So we're exploring use cases like this to be able to enable team members across TraceLink right now across a variety of topics. So with that, we'll give Brian and the team 1 minute and 32 seconds back, and we'll thank you for your time and attention, and thank you very much for participating with us here at FutureLink Boston 2025. I'll turn it over to Brian. Thank you.